Welcome, welcome everyone to the Diversity Saves Community Showcase. If you are tuning in for the first time, Diversity Saves is a 501c3 nonprofit organization made up of passionate TTRPG creators, actors, and fans from marginalized communities who wanted to create a means to amplify voices not only in the community but in the works we consume across the industry. Before I introduce our guest today, just a little housekeeping. As you may have seen a few minutes ago or when you clicked on the stream, we are now Twitch affiliates, and there are now ads. While Twitch ads may feel a little disruptive and revenue from Twitch, as well as subscriptions and bits directly benefit our grant giving program. Subscribing to the channel will remove the ads and directly donate to our programs, but we understand that that is not accessible for everybody. Now let's get on with the good stuff. Today's community showcase, I am joined by Steph Campbell, the creator of TTRPGKids, which is an award-nominated and winning website full of game reviews, articles, and advice for parents with kids that want to get involved with TTRPGs. Through TTRPGKids, Steph has also created and crowdfunded a number of exciting and creative TTRPGs for kids. Welcome, Steph.
Hi, thank you for having me here.
Absolutely. We are going to talk a lot about kids and games today. So before we get really deep into the questions, I kind of just wanted to ask a little bit of an icebreaker. What was your favorite game to play as a kid?
So I'm here to talk about like analog games, but I think my favorite game as a kid, oh gosh, can I say two?
Absolutely.
Okay, so there is this Nancy Drew mystery series that I was super into, and you play as Nancy Drew and you're like solving the mysteries and everything like that, and there's like dozens of them out there. I loved those, and like into adulthood have played them as well. Those were really fun. And then the one that might sound like a little bit weird, Sid Meier's Alpha Centauri. So it's like Civilization, but like the alien version. My brother and I would play that back and forth like hot seat against each other, and just those were some good memories. So yeah.
I love those answers. They were much more interesting than mine. Mine was Candyland. But
Candyland is definitely like a good standby. My kid was super into Candyland for a really long time, and when we get into motivations maybe for why I started tabletop RPGs, Candyland is part of that story. So
popular with everybody still, I guess. So you mentioned TTRPGs just now. It was mentioned in our greeting. What was your kind of first introduction to TTRPGs?
The first time I ever played one was a one-shot that a family friend of ours, Dave, had kicked up with as my partner and like a bunch of his buddies at work. And it was kind of like maybe like an extended one-shot turned into like a little mini campaign. And in their last session, I had been hearing about this and I was like, can I like jump in there? And they were okay with it. Let me jump in. And I made like way too much backstory for my character. Got super excited about it. Loved playing it. We were up to like 1 or 2 a.m. And then it was like done. And I was like, no, I need more of this. But like adult life happened. And so we kind of didn't touch back on it again until it was like 4 or 5 years later. And I kind of got reintroduced to it through my brother recommending Critical Role to me. So yeah.
Very nice. And that was that, you said that was D&D?
Yeah, it was D&D. I was probably, it was like mid-20s. So I had not played them as a kid myself. So yeah.
Gotcha. So kind of, moving forward now, is D&D your favorite system to play in?
I do like D&D. I actually really like Lasers and Feelings. So I have found that and like all the hacks associated with that, because I review a lot of like short kind of modular games, and it's a great system that you could build on. Like for anything. Yes, there was one where it was like princesses, and it was like princesses or like power. There's another one where it's I think there was one with like dinosaurs and stuff like that. There's like so many opposing things you can do with it. It's just like a lot of fun.
So many ways to play it, and
yeah. And I like Inspiriles as well. So that one you need to learn sign language. In order to cast spells and like get bonuses. So I really like the mechanics for that one, just because it's also like a really good education tool. So yeah. But D&D with a lot of my friends, because it's like the system that a lot of people know. And then like I like the systems where it's very easy to learn, but then they're like kind of thinky sometimes. Like there's a lot of strategy within like the simple mechanics. So it's fun to find those.
You like the option to get crunchy with it? Is that kind of
a
little bit?
Kind of. Okay.
Okay. When you played with your friends, was there a setting or an environment that you liked the most?
We've done a lot of like medieval fantasy kind of stuff, but I always throw sci-fi in there. I am a sci-fi geek, so I grew up on Trek, and
me too. I love that.
Yeah, I will find ways to wedge in weird science and time travel, and we're like, okay, well, we're gonna jump into a dimension for a little bit. There's gonna be some sci-fi stuff because we need to shake this up. So it gets a little wacky, and everyone seems pretty okay with it. So
games do. Yeah. Games do. Well, talking about TTRPG Kids, what kind of inspired you to devote yourself to all this research, this gathering, the creating that you've done as this kind of one person team that is TTRPG Kids? What inspired all of that?
So there's kind of like, I've sort of like, there's a story that I've told before, and that I've kind of realized that it's actually like a two-parter, but I need to tell the second part first. So the what I've talked about before is pretty much like COVID shutdown happened, and like I was a crash test engineer at the time, and it got to this point, I think it was like 10 months in, all the daycares were still shut down. Kiddo was like 2.5. I was like trying to remotely analyze crash tests while also having a meeting with my boss, and kiddo was climbing up my back asking for mommy. And I was like, my heart was breaking, and also like my brain was getting pulled in multiple directions. I was just like, yeah, we're like really struggling here. Because both my partner and I are engineers, and so it was like kind of 50-60 hour work weeks sometimes for both of us, and then it wasn't really working out with the kiddo situation. Like we want to make sure that kiddo had attentive parents who were there, especially since we couldn't really get help with that. So I decided to kind of step away from that for a while. And engineer brain did not like sitting still. I had started playing tabletop RPGs with kiddo as a way to help with social emotional skills. So I'd seen other people talking about it before. And I started getting a little bit more into it as I had more time. And I was like, this is actually really working. I was trying to look up more information. It was just kind of like all over the place. So lots of people saying that it could help, lots of like scattered pieces of information that a lot of times contradicted each other. I saw lots of forums where people were asking for help and no one was answering, or they were just directing them to the same 3 games, and people were like, there's better ones out there. It's like, okay, where are the better ones? What are you talking about? Or someone saying, no, you like wait until they're 10 or something, and someone else saying, no, I played it with my 3-year-old. And it's like, how did you do your process? And there was just like so much going on. And I had like an insomnia night where I couldn't sleep, and my brain just decided, we're going to devote time to trying to map all this out. So it kind of came out of a sleepless night and a restless engineering brain. and I started putting it together, chatting with a few people. A few people mentioned like, oh yeah, websites are pretty easy to put together, which there's a huge learning curve with putting together a website.
Oh, sure.
Which I found out. And I don't know, I think I needed a project that gave me some flexibility. And then it was also a good tie-in with what I was doing with Kiddo. It just gave me like an opportunity to share that and let that be seen. And then I could kind of pull the information in. So when I see like scattered bits of information, I'm like, oh, I can put that into the site and organize it. And so this is like my attempt at organizing a pocket of the internet, I feel like. So that was kind of my motivation. It's just kind of been this odd deep dive that has lasted for years, and I keep going further in. So yeah.
I mean, you've done a ton. I was exploring through the website. I think maybe your first post, would that have been 2021, maybe? Around there?
I think so. It would have been around then.
But yeah,
it's been going on a few years. Yeah.
Yeah, like 60 pages worth of content. So I think I saw somewhere else that it was around like 500 different articles, and that includes, those little pieces of organized information, but that's also, your reviews of games, your advice for parents. Really a treasure trove of information. So, as far as you being like, an engineer and having that background, do you really think it was just that kind of drive to organize and be like kind of data oriented that kind of helped with the website?
Yeah, I think that definitely played into it. So when I was doing engineering, I was good at my job, and like I did like parts of it. A lot of the reason I think I was good at what I was doing was because I was able to organize stuff. I've been finding out that I organize things more out of necessity than anything else. Like I just got good at it as a way of like kind of coping with life. But that's like, I think I'm like learning to be like, okay with that's why. I think that having that engineering background, it did get me to build up a skill set of having to organize things. When I was in engineer scheduling crash, I was like, those crash tests are expensive. So I got really good at handling a lot of information that had priority and pressure attached to it. And so when I'm looking at posting stuff online, like we've passed the 500 article mark. I still get nervous about posting stuff, but I also had gotten really used to being nervous about doing things and then still doing them, because it was like we had to run the crash test. So, I see how much it costs and I'm in charge of hitting the button. And I was like, So there's kind of odd soft skills I think I picked up from that experience that I've been able to translate over. And then there's like a creativity element. So one of the things that I really liked about engineering was getting a problem and just being told to solve it, and nobody knows how to solve it. Otherwise they wouldn't ask you. So I worked on like replacing airbags and the tailgate on the Titan and windshields and all kinds of stuff where it was kind of like, okay, go learn as much as you can about this thing in the next 3 weeks and then come back to me with this fix to this problem. I loved that. And now I kind of give myself little projects like that with, oh, here's a new game. It's got an interesting system. Let's go learn everything about this, then write an article about it and send it out to people. And I can see immediately that it's out there and people are looking at it and reading it. And I don't know. I think it kind of translates over. Like all the skills kind of intermix at some point.
Absolutely. And it's cool to be able to use your skills and your passions and to feel like you are helping people, even if it's maybe in, like a smaller, like everyday way. But at the same time, I don't know. It's not really that small, maybe helping kids and parents connect, that's actually a big deal. So it's cool that you get to do that.
Yeah. And I like I always like when I'm in my car and I know that like the airbag that I designed is in that car, and I know that I did it like I trust the airbag because like it was one that I designed and I know what the test results are. But then, and like there's a pride to that, but then there's
Absolutely.
also this like a different kind of like pride that kind of sparks up when I've had people send me pictures of like their family gaming table, and they're like, we tried this game out because we saw it on your website, and like the kids have all colored in their character sheets and they're all playing with each other, and it's just like, I don't know, it makes me weirdly happy to know that that was like I had some part in that.
Yeah,
So,
you did, and it should make you
yeah.
happy. That's really
Yeah.
cool. When you are playing games with your kiddo, is there a game that he likes the most?
So we try out so many different systems that we don't really stick with one in particular, but there is a theme.
Okay.
And so the theme is always like whatever kiddo's favorite character at the time is will become the consistent character for every single one of our games. So for a while it was Spider-Man. Right now it is Link from Legend of Zelda. So every game that we play, kiddo plays as Link from Legend of Zelda, and I will find some way to incorporate like maybe Ganon or Koroks or like some other kind of element.
I was going to say that probably forces you to get pretty creative with some of those games.
Yeah. Sometimes it's reskinning things that are existing like in a pre-made module where it's like, okay, like there's forest sprites, that's a Korok now, kind of thing. But other times, like it does require like a little bit of like, okay, how would this fit in this particular system? Or like, let's try and spec out Ganon in like something like Lasers and Feelings. You know what I mean? And so like Ganon all lasers. Like how do we do that? So it's kind of I don't know. It's fun. It's very fun.
That is fun. That is fun.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to TTRPGs, what do you think is unique or could be unique about using those versus other games to encourage family time and encourage that parent and child bonding?
So I think that the collective storytelling element for this is really important because you do take turns, the kids and the parents, or like whoever the facilitator is, take turns regularly and are on the same level. So it's an opportunity for parents to be on the same level as their kids, and for the kids to be in the presence of their parents on the same level too. Like that's the expectation. There's not as much of like an authority level. Like everyone is like has the same responsibility and enjoyment in the game and the creative process. I also think that so when I started TTRPGKids, there's kind of like that part 2. And I think the part 1 to this is, I think that kids sometimes have a really easy time just being able to play a game. And adults sometimes struggle and can sometimes struggle with like getting into play. And there can be a number of reasons for that. Sometimes it can be like how you grew up. There could be trauma involved. There can be just like perceptions you have about what your responsibilities are as an adult and whatnot. And so when like I went through a whole like postpartum depression phase and then getting into like raising kiddo, there's like some hard bits and pieces that happen when you're a parent, and it's like it's hard. Like you love your kid and you spend time with them, but it is also hard sometimes. And so being able to play tabletop RPGs with my kid was like this real solid opportunity where it kind of gave permission to play and connect, and helped me to kind of break down a lot of the barriers that like I may have had or like that I did have. And so that's another reason why I think the motivation has kept going with TTRPG Kids.
Yeah.
And I think it's why tabletop RPGs can be such a unique opportunity, especially in like a family situation, because it can help the like caregiver to break down some of their own barriers to be able to connect with their kids.
Yeah.
A lot of times the kid's very willing to connect from what I like. And it helps caregivers to kind of get on that level too. So
yeah, and those are some great points. I like the comment about being on the same level, and they do get to cut loose. I think everybody has a lot of pressures right now, and parents maybe even more so. So yeah, some really good points there. Do you think obviously we just talked about like families playing a game together. What are your thoughts on solo play TTRPGs? Where kids are playing these games by themselves. What are the unique benefits to that versus something they're doing with mom and dad?
Yeah. So solo play, I like, for me, really love solo journaling games, because it feels peaceful and it's like introspective. And I think that it can be like that for a lot of kids too. It's saying, here is a story, and instead of just reading it, you're going to play it. And there's no pressure to have to like be around other people right now. Like, some people recharge when they're around other people, and other folks like recharge when they're on their own. And so it gives an opportunity to still be able to play the game, get into the narrative, and have some control within the story and discover what's going to happen without having that pressure. For people who are who like want to play a tabletop RPG but are maybe worried about getting into like a whole crowd or being at a table with other people, because it like the first time especially, like it can be kind of nerve-wracking and like, what am I doing? What is this? I don't know what I'm I think solo games can be a really good introduction to that, so you can kind of learn what's
More
going
accessible.
on right before you go in. So it's kind of like breaking down one of the barriers to actually like getting to the game table. And then another facet of solo games is it doesn't always have to be solo. With my kid, he can read on his own now, but we still like to do this where we will play duet style. So I'll read the game and then kiddo will respond. So it's still a solo journaling game, but it's also, there's that back and forth and some kind of social connection. And it's, storytelling time, but it's like directed prompts, and it's still very fun. So
do you think like that there also might be maybe a kind of extra draw to solo play for maybe older kids, like teenagers?
For sure. I think that, like, if I think back to teenage Steph, kind of sitting there like probably a little angsty and just kind of like contemplating life and being a teenager, I feel like a solo journaling game would have hit like perfectly then. It gets you to think about yourself, ask questions.
Teenage Lenora would have loved that.
yeah, especially if it's like a little bit moody. I like 100%. So yeah. Or like a mystery. If it was like a solo mystery, oh gosh, be like so into that. Yeah.
I don't think we really got too specific, so I'm just curious, what skills do you think that TTRPGs can teach children?
I think on the surface, it's like really obvious that there's like math, reading, writing, and social emotional learning. So whatever mechanics you're using, there's going to be some level of math, and even if it's not numbers, there's like an intuitive learning that happens with probability, and just like picking up, oh, if I do this, like this logically will kind of happen. Like you get used to it over time. There's like reading and writing, also kind of obvious if you got a character sheet or there's any kind of rule book. You need to use those skills and practice those skills in order to be able to play this fun, awesome game. So it's great motivation for learning to read and to write notes and things like that. And then with social emotional learning, there's so many, like public speaking, there's taking turns, there's active listening, planning ahead, thinking about consequences, action reaction pairs, and things like that. There's also past kind of some of the surface stuff, you can incorporate all kinds of other material. So I've made games that teach about space and chemistry, and they get into the problem solving process and things like that. So you can get into science. I've also done kind of some work on examples for how to incorporate social studies class material that's not going to spark up some kind of big hoopla in the class because we're talking about a fantasy world and not the real world, but they happen to have the same governmental system, and things like that. Or you can get into, oh gosh, there's so many topics you can do. Like any of it can be incorporated into there as like some kind of side learning plot. But I think like the most important part is that community. And I think that that is a learned skill in a lot of ways, is like being able to see other people coming together and having each other's backs. Even if you're playing like an evil campaign and you're all bad guys, like you still have each other's backs usually at some point. Like there's that element is something that I think needs to be learned too, like trusting other people. And I know that falls under social emotional skills, but I think that that's also like not necessarily one we always think of, or at least that when I've chatted with other people, it's kind of learning what community is like an important part. So
I feel the same way about community that I do about creativity, that they are both skills, and you can strengthen them, you can learn them. And it's funny, my next question you kind of already answered, which was going to be, you know, how can we kind of use these in like a school educational setting? But you kind of answered it already. It sounds like TTRPGs can be the vehicle, right? To kind of, you know, to input that social studies or to input whatever. But it's just a really good vehicle to teach these things because they make it more creative, they make it more accessible, you know, all these different things. But I mean, do you have anything you want to add on to the educational component, like in a school setting? Or
sure. I think that like adding like a little like 3-minute story to something, it can be the exact same lesson, but having a little story and having little story breaks throughout it makes such a difference. So like turning a chemistry lab into a quest through a dungeon where you have to solve pH puzzles and like mix chemicals in order to like stop like the scientist lab from exploding or something like that. I mean, it turns like a regular class into an adventure without adding a whole lot of time to it. That story frame is really important. And I think that like if you look at how we have learned as like humans thousands of years ago, it was by experience and stories around the campfire. And so and it was kind of more recently, it's been, okay, so here's stuff that we know is fact, here's like memorization has been introduced and things like that. And there's maybe places for that. Also, I think that we internalize the messages that we learn and the material that we learn a lot more if it is framed with a story. And that's what TTRPGs do. So it makes it immersive and gets you like you're role playing. So you have some of that experience, and then you're also collectively telling a story. So you have that like storytelling around the campfire kind of element. So
yeah, absolutely. You know, we do like, I mean, like you said, like historically, like we have learned from stories. And so, and when it comes to kids too, like I think we should all be using whatever we can to connect with them, you know. So absolutely. So talking about kind of stories and games within an educational setting, you know, in some of my past work, you know, we've used games to work with children in a therapeutic setting. When Inside Out came out, like that was a big deal, and we were using all kinds of games that were Inside Out themed. But TTRPGs are different than a lot of just, you know, card games or whatever. Do you think that there's anything, you know, unique, or do you think there's any benefits that TTRPGs could lend towards that, you know, that therapy, that therapeutic kind of situation for kids?
Yeah. So I'll do like a small disclaimer. I'm not a therapist. So what I'm saying is like anecdotal bits of information from people who are therapists. So
you're not providing therapy to anybody right now.
Yes, that's my disclaimer. Whenever I do a therapeutics article, I always put that on there, and I'm like, this article is in conjunction, or like made in conjunction with somebody who is a therapist. So so when it comes to using tabletop RPGs for therapeutic purposes, I've been to talks that other people have given or worked with other folks who do use tabletop RPGs for therapy. And one of the things that has like consistently stuck out from what almost all of them have said is like our brains in the middle of the fiction, tabletop RPGs, don't 100% distinguish between it being a story and it being real. So, but you do have some distinguishing between them. So you're kind of like half in, or like you've got, you know, a couple toes in. So when you experience something in the game, it's a little bit easier sometimes because you can have a little bit of, you're a little bit removed. You know that it's in fiction. There is some level of safety to it. But also, when you have that experience in the game, your brain recognizes it as still like an experience. And so you can sometimes approach it a little bit more gently, like a tough topic, in order to deal with it slowly over time. You can test the waters. You can see repeatedly, time and again, other people working through their stuff at the table. You can watch other people have your back for 10 sessions and gain that trust with them, and then face whatever it is in front of them that you've been wanting to do, or maybe like stand up to an NPC who's kind of a bully and get some of that confidence. That all said, when you are approaching tabletop RPGs for therapeutic purposes, if you are intending to use it that way, you need to be like a trained therapist to administer that. I've also heard a lot of stories where friends have tried to therapy their friends, or a parent has tried to therapy their kid in a TTRPG session, and it goes horribly wrong because they're not a therapist, even if they know.
Who would have thought it would go so wrong?
Yeah, and it's, you know, it takes training to walk somebody through facing their fear like that. So, and there's a couple parents who have said like, oh, like I tried introducing this to my kid and they don't want to play with me anymore. And I was like, okay. And they're like, I know my kid better than everyone. And I'm like, I get it, but you're also not a therapist, even if you are their parent. Yeah. And like, I won't use tabletop RPGs to therapy my own kid. Because like you can make it worse. So introducing something too quickly or making something too obvious or too strong in it can also have like the opposite effect. So I just want to make sure that there's like some caution used if you are approaching it like therapeutic intent. So, but there's also just naturally, like if you're just playing the game, a lot of times, like I know I personally have worked through a lot of stuff just naturally playing the game. It wasn't geared towards my personal like background as a human being. But I still worked through a lot of stuff and saw like that friendship and community was really key to that. And that's just something natural that happens with the game. So
yeah. Yeah, I totally agree with that caveat of, you know, if you're not trained, you shouldn't be doing it. And you're right, like sometimes we just kind of learn something new about ourselves naturally. I mean, it can happen in games. It's happened for me in books. So, you know, it's just something that does happen. You know, and I think it's a really cool thing when it does. Well, we've talked a lot about just games in general and how, you know, they affect children or how they can be used to benefit children. I want to talk a little bit about some specific games now. The first one is a game that has been out for, has it been a year now? It came out last year. You crowdfunded it. It's called A Construct's Nature.
Yeah. It's only been out for a month.
So it's for a month?
Yeah, okay. It just released last month. So I crowdfunded it last year though. So that's probably where the two times. But
yeah, that's where my confusion came from. It looks so interesting. Has a narrated slideshow. It is for solo play, but it has that narrated slideshow that goes with it, and then it is a journaling TTRPG, correct?
Yep.
Okay. Do you want to just talk a little bit about, you know, kind of the main storyline of it?
Yeah. So in A Construct's Nature, you wake up in the middle of this like wrecked building and you don't know anything about why you're there or who you are. And so you're slowly coming to like consciousness and seeing bits and pieces of things around you. First, you can see things. After a while, you start to be able to feel things. You realize that you are a construct. And this is all like in chapter 0. This is like the character creation walkthrough. So I'm not like spoiling.
No big spoilers.
You know.
Okay.
Yeah. You realize you're a construct. So you're a robot that has just been left here in this wrecked building that's all overgrown with all kinds of stuff. And you're alone. And so that's how it starts out. And throughout the rest of the story, you are trying to figure out what your purpose is, what it is that you're here for and supposed to be doing. And you run into other characters along the way and get to decide if you bring them along or if you leave them behind. And if you make friends with them and if you make decisions that would help them to make friends. So each character has a trust meter that will change depending on how you interact with them. Your character can take damage. So it's like a choose your own adventure book, but it's not aimed at killing your character off. Like you can shut down if you like aren't using any of your items and skills and things like that. Like the odds are you probably won't make it to the end. But if you're like at least like using some of your bonuses, like you should kind of make it. It's more to challenge how you handle your own like health and well-being and your trust with your friends to the end. And there's multiple endings depending on what kind of experience you have. So if you buddy up with all the magical friends and don't hang out with any of the tech or nature friends, like you're going to have options to pick like the magical ending, like the one that kind of focuses on magic stuff. If you team up with your nature themed buddies, you're gonna probably go more that route because you'll get a totally different story about what has happened in the past or like what little bits of information you find. So I tried to hide like so little secrets throughout it, so should be able to find different things on each playthrough. But
oh my gosh, it sounds incredible.
Yeah, I had fun with it. So it's kind of like I liked the companions in Baldur's Gate 3 and how a lot of it was about building up their friendships and things like that. I liked I've always like I said, I was like a Trek nerd. Data was one of my favorite characters. So Data was a little bit of an inspiration here. The Wild Robot was part of that. Scavenger's Reign had kind of been going on at the same time, and I was like, oh, I love the robot in this one. And so there's like multiple influences that kind of I don't know, I just had a feeling I wanted to write it, decided to do so. And there's an educator guide. So you can do it as solo play, but then it also tells you how to play it as a classroom. So you can have that collective, like the whole class making decisions for the character, or like breaking them out into teams and things like that. So there's a few different options for how to play it, but yeah. So.
And then did it have like a recommended like age for play for that one?
I would say it kind of depends on the kid. My recommendation would be 6 and up. 6 if you've got somebody who is reading it to your kid.
Gotcha.
Just because like it's a chunky book. So like
might need some help if you're younger.
This is like one of the prototype ones, but you can see like,
oh my gosh, that is
that's so it's
300.
I think it was like 350 pages or something like that. It was like 300 pages. So it's a little chunky, but it is broken into chapters. So like, it's also kind of like 11 short books together in a sense. But I made it to try and be all ages. So adults will get a different meaning out of it than kids. Kids with the companions will kind of see like, oh, the companion acted this way because they're sad or because they're confused. But adult might be like, that character's got anxiety and is going through a moment right now kind of thing. So there's kind of
that character's in crisis.
Right. Like this character's actually having like a really hard time. How do we comfort them? So there's kind of like where the kid will just be like, oh, they got a boo-boo or they got hurt and they're probably sad and we should probably get them like some medicine or something like that. So I played it with kids and then also had adult play testers, and like seeing each one pick out the different meaning I was like, yes. So it's meant to be like accessible for kids, but then also like still engaging for like tweens and teens and adults. Like
I love that.
Yeah.
Love that. You have another project that's pretty current. It's not actually live yet. Called StoryGuider. And that one does have a recommended age. That's 2 to 7. And it seems like it's a coloring adventure.
Yeah. So
okay.
This one is another like kind of choose your adventure game, but it's made for really little kids. StoryGuider was the first thing I started publishing. So it's been in digital format since the start of TTRPGKids almost. And this is like me hiring artists to do the art instead of like my scribbles, and then getting it into like a physical format. So they're coloring book adventures. This was kicked off during the whole like kind of COVID shutdown stuff was still going on. There was a pre-K teacher who had reached out to me and was like, oh, I have this social emotional learning curriculum that I need to get to the kids, but it's like, it needs some work. Can we maybe like, do you think this would be good for stories? And I was like, oh yeah, let me write stories for every single week of your curriculum. And probably went a little too hard on it and wrote like 30 like little mini games. So it's been sitting there in digital format and I've wanted to update it for a long time. So I'll be hiring artists to do it. There's coloring pages, activities all through it because it's meant to be for like a pre-K class, but then it's also so it's designed for like a teacher to read to kids, or like a parent or caregiver to read to kids, and walk them through it and then give them activity sheets as they go. But then also I have found with my kid that they're really good early readers. So for my kid's almost 7, he can read them on his own as like a solo journaling game almost that is not super intimidating. This kind of soft choices. It's like within like the size of maybe a little bit longer than like a golden book or something. So it doesn't feel massive.
Yeah.
So yeah.
That's awesome. So, well, you've done more than just the two that we've mentioned too. Is there anything unique about crowdfunding, you know, a project that's meant for children, or just anything unique about what you've done?
Yeah, so crowdfunding projects for kids, so I've talked with other people who have crowdfunded tabletop RPGs, and there's kind of one way to market to your audience. When you're crowdfunding a tabletop RPG that's not geared at kids, you are marketing directly to the person who will play it or put it in their collection, or who wants to give it to their fellow like players or their GM or something. Right. When you are marketing a tabletop RPG for kids, you are trying to convince a caregiver or a teacher why to buy it for their child, but then you also still have to make it engaging for the child when they actually get it in their hands. So there's you're marketing to two audiences. Like you need to it's a totally different kind of way to describe your project. Is instead of why is this good for you, it's why is this good for your kid? And then you have to make it engaging for both the kid and the adult when it's being played. In preparation for all of this, I read multiple books about writing children's literature. Okay. So it wasn't about making tabletop RPGs. It was about specifically children's books, because all of that I translated over into the way I formatted all my tabletop RPGs. And some of it is just good storytelling for tabletop RPGs in general. But for kids' books, a lot of times they will have one core like lesson that they're going to teach. They iterate it 3 times. And then there will be some kind of witty closing. And that is like, there's an introduction. You like emphasize the point 3 times because then it sticks. And it like shows that building kind of tension and whatnot, and you kind of get that all wrapped into there, and then you have some kind of closure. And it's usually going to be a lot shorter adventure. You can't have as much mechanics a lot of times, especially if it's for a really young audience. There's all these different things to consider that like get really specific for that kind of, I would say the 2 to 8 range. Once it's like kind of 8 and up, a lot of times like the reading skills and math skills can kind of match up with I think like Dungeons and Dragons is recommended for 8 and up because of the reading and math levels required. But like below that age, it's like a very different kind of design structure, I think. Just lots of new stuff. So I kind of had a little study deep dive on children's literature instead of into tabletop RPGs. It was kind of like the different bit there.
I mean, so it makes sense. Like, and you know, especially for kids, I think you do need to have those strong story those strong story beats, I guess. Yeah. Okay.
Different kind of pacing. So
yeah. I mentioned it earlier, but you have been nominated, let's see, for 2 Crit Awards, and then you actually won an Emmy as well for Best Online Content. What does that mean to you? How does that make you feel?
I was flabbergasted. So the Crit Awards, I was nominated for, there was a best article for, I think it was using tabletop RPGs to teach science and engineering. And then it was for the community member award, which I was like, oh okay. And then the Emmy I won was for best online content, and I was like, I had never won a popularity contest of any kind before. I was like, so I ran for student council in middle school because I just didn't want the other person to be uncontested, kind of thing. And like, I got like 2 votes, you know, kind of thing, and stuff like that. Like that was like the level of popularity I was at, like through school and everything. So this was like, I was shocked.
I mean, as somebody who has looked through the website, I think it was well deserved. I mean,
Yeah, well,
I think I
thank you.
used the phrase earlier. You're welcome. I used the phrase earlier, treasure trove, but I mean, it's so much information. So
Yeah.
it makes sense why you won.
Yeah.
I know, you know, that you do find yourself at different conventions. You've got Gen Con, I think is probably the next one coming up for you.
Yeah.
What unique opportunities do conventions, you know, offer you as a creator, as, you know, the person that's behind TTRPG Kids?
Yeah. So I like teaching. After the whole engineer thing, and like I used to teach in the evenings and when I was like still an engineer, and then got into being an adjunct professor for a while. So being at conventions and doing panels and workshops and whatnot lets me kind of make teacher brain happy. And there's I really like just kind of getting to share like a specific aspect of this. So getting to do a talk at a convention, it's kind of like, okay, let's take this one tiny, like very niche thing, and I get to work with other people who are also interested in the same topic, which is amazing. Because we just get to nerd out in, you know,
It's that community piece too. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And I have convention friends now that I'm just like really excited to see on a regular basis. I have conventions I attend on the regular, and then I'm like, oh, hey, I'm going to be in town. Do you want to go hang out and stuff? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I have convention friends. And it's kind of amazing. I had a couple people recognize me at a convention before, and I was like, what's going on?
It's famous.
Right. I was like, hi. And they're like, oh, we like read your website. And I was like, cool, thank you. And like, we chatted for a little bit, and it was kind of nice. Like, we just chatted about life stuff, you know, it just quickly changed the conversation. So it's just that community, like it kind of builds up there. It's also a good opportunity for me to get my work out there. I want it to be out there for people to like play the games and use the material with their kids in classes. So it helps me to be able to do that. And then, yeah, it's just, and I will go and interview people for the website. And that's kind of my fun way of being like, hey, I would really like to chat with this person. Would you like to do an interview for the website? And then now we have like some kind of point to start from. So I'll do that at conventions too. And it's just nice to meet people and geek out is what it really kind of is.
Absolutely,
and yeah, you get this whole community network of just people interested in the same thing and kind of supporting each other, and just it's fun.
It's good. Absolutely. You know, working with other people, I know that you've also been a writer and a play tester, involved with some other projects. Is there one that stands out to you, like one that you're the proudest of, or that you had the most fun on?
This might be another one where I like try and do too. I really liked writing the adventures for Wormlings. So it's kind of like a bunch of little dragons go to dragon school to learn how to use their special powers. And through the power of friendship, they can all kind of team up and beat the bad guy. Like maybe they're a broccoli wizard or something like that. Like there's some fun villains in it. So I got to write the like 3 finale adventures for that one. That was really cool just because I had like a big chunk. Like there's like, I can point to the book and be like, I wrote that much, you know, kind of thing. And then I really liked the like adventure I wrote for Cryptid Creeks. So that one's by Hatchlings Games. So Wormlings is by Lone Colossus, and Cryptic Creatures by Hatchlings, and it was like, what did I call it? It's basically like toys that come to life. And so I got to make it like, it was a little creepy, but like not too much.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a little bit like a softer version of Goosebumps kind of thing. So it's a little different from some of the stuff I normally write.
That's cool, yeah.
And I got the opportunity to make like a lot of really cool NPCs for that. I went a bit meta and had one of the locations is at a friendly local game store and stuff like that. So I really like doing that one.
That's cool. I like that. That's really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any other kind of fun, nerdy obsessions outside of TTRPGs that you enjoy doing?
Star Trek. So
yes.
I have it over here. When I was at Origins,
have you watched any of like the newer shows?
We are very desperately waiting for the next season of Brave New Worlds to come out.
Okay.
It comes out later this month. I think we have like another week or two. It's like right before Gen Con, and we're like, no, because we're gonna be driving to Gen Con.
We have to binge watch it.
Right, we're gonna have to come back and probably finish it up, or like maybe at the hotel at Gen Con. We'll be like, let's get our Trek fix. So
you gotta do what you gotta do, yeah.
Right, yeah. My partner and I, our first date was I asked him out to go see the Star Trek movie that was on the lawn, and then proceeded to answer all the trivia questions. And apparently that was okay with him. So
I think that sounds like a great first date.
Yeah, the nerd goes hard. So
you were very upfront with him about who you are.
Right. And then after we got married, I was like, okay, so you have not seen all the Star Trek. We are going to, over the course of the first 2 years of our marriage, watch all the Star Trek episodes. So it became like this nightly thing where we would watch an episode of Star Trek. And like, so I got to share, I was like, oh, this is a good episode. This is a good one. We got to like the Darmok and Jalada Tanagra one, and I was just like, okay, you don't understand. When I say like we're talking in memes and it's like the Star Trek episode, this is what we're talking about. And like I got way too excited about it. So Star Trek is like my other passion. So awesome. Yeah. And baking. That's just nice random. Yeah. We have a mix of sci-fi and baking shows in the queue, and that's nice. It ranges. So yeah.
Well, Steph, it was great to have you on here. We talked about, a construct's nature. We talked about StoryGuider. We talked about the website, TTRPGKids.com. I guess really the last thing to ask you, Steph, is what does the future hold? What else do you have planned? What else is going to happen with TTRPG Kids?
I have such a long queue of projects that I want to get out there. So I don't see it slowing down anytime soon.
Awesome.
I am trying really hard to pace myself because I want to do all the things right now. And I know that it's more like a 10-year plan, in all honesty. So I have a whole bunch of cool projects that I really want to get out there. I'm going to try and do 2 a year, and try to keep up with the 2 to 3 articles per week, and just keep seeing what's out there. Everyone's making new games, and I'm excited to try them out. So yeah.
Well, I mean, again, we're excited about StoryGuider coming out. Hopefully everybody will check that out. And I mean, I think that you've done a lot of really awesome work in a part of the community that needed some organization. So we're glad to have you here, and we're excited to see what else you do in the future.
Cool. Well, thank you very much. And thank you for having me on the show. It's been a pleasure talking with you. So, yeah.
Well, thank you again, and thanks everybody that tuned in or that will see this in the future.
Mm-hmm.
All righty.